And China's successful because China's capitalist. That's why China's successful. It's because they're capitalist. And these retards, they open their mouth and they speak, and only shit is coming out. I believe in a new form of education that we should have for adults. So we have mandatory primary school education, K through 12, and then you're an adult, right? I actually think there should be a mandatory secondary education, but it should have legally enforced violence. So if you're a fucking retard, you should get beaten for saying stupid shit by the state-appointed teachers and educators. So if you're a fucking idiot who doesn't know anything and you're yapping and talking, you should be physically beaten with rulers and whatever. And I'm not talking the Caleb Maupin way, with paddling. I mean, straight up, you get punched in the face by a state-appointed educator for the stupid shit that you say. This is the re-education I envision for people who claim that China is successful because of capitalism, thinking that this is some ironic, intelligent thing that they're saying. These people do not analyze systems or understand how systems work. They see money and they see markets. And you know what the most stupid one of all is? They see consumer goods and brands and say that's capitalism. Okay, baseball bat to the head. Not even KO. Institutionalized baseball bat to the fucking head for every fucking idiot and retard who claims that capitalism equals McDonald's and Coca-Cola and Mickey Mouse. Fuck you. I hate you. You're an idiot. I don't just think you're wrong. I have hatred toward you. Because what an idiotic, cliche, retard, hipster, idiot thing to say. If anything, the rise of consumerism and brands like McDonald's and Coca-Cola, while maybe reflective on a cultural level of certain aspects of bourgeois culture, the structure in terms of how they interface with markets and systems absolutely obeys a post-capitalist logic where profits are no longer principally in command, but the reign of aesthetics, the reign of culture as the assimilating and assailing force cohering supply chains for the reproduction of an aesthetical principle that is absolutely the sublimation of the logic of capital and commodities, which means it's no longer the pure empty form of profit that is in command anymore. It's an overall vision of culture or something. Steve Jobs, Apple, McDonald's, Mickey Mouse, it doesn't matter. Walt Disney. This is a post-capitalist logic of production that took place and was taking hold within American capitalism. Walt Disney and Henry Ford were not bog standard capitalists described by Marx. They were quote-unquote visionaries, as the groveling retards like to call them. But the grain of truth in that claim that they're visionaries is that they represented the predominance of principles beyond naked profit as the guiding force behind production. So that's an extremely superficial and stupid thing to claim, that the presence of brands, foreign brands within China and McDonald's means capitalism has prevailed. Oh, but McDonald's is a symbol of capitalism. Yeah, maybe if you're a fucking idiot and a retard who doesn't know what words mean. This is some stupid cliche from that disgusting game you play, Disco Elysium. And, this is such a European way of analyzing the world, to be honest. And the capitalism is the hamburger from McDonald's. No, it's fucking not, you idiot. Read Alexander Kojev, you fucking moron. But at the end of the day, the Gucci bag is the capitalism. No, it's fucking not. Neither is you making money off of shitcoins capitalism. You don't know what capitalism is because you're an idiot. Capitalism today takes the institutional form of hedge funds and banks. It's principally financial. All these brands and companies are subordinated to far more abstract financial institutions in terms of who they answer to and who they are ultimately making quote-unquote money or fictitious capital for. They are speculative vehicles for the realization of fictitious capital. And that's where you have to first begin when you want to analyze the claim of whether capitalism has prevailed within China. In terms of the abstract financial institutions that predominate in determining our current global system or American-led system, does China allow the logic of financialization to prevail over the economy? Private financialization? No, and the answer is no. China maybe has a handful of private banks, if you can even call them private, the monopoly on the printing of currency is firmly in the hands of the state, and production is driven by a logic of planning and development. It is not driven by the logic of naked profit. Profit within China is a tool for accounting. It's a tool for accounting, sure, to see if an enterprise is efficient with resources or not, or a given financial endeavor is efficient in terms of input and output. It's a method of accounting. A similar method of accounting existed under the Mao era. Money existed in the Mao era. Markets existed in the Mao era. There's nothing about money in markets or the use of very complicated and sophisticated financial tools that makes a country capitalist. What determines whether a country is capitalist is A, what is the dominant class? Who controls the state? Is the state subordinated to the interests of any given delimited private cartel? That's in America, absolutely it is. In China, can we say so? No, we can't. There's no evidence whatsoever there's any capitalist class that controls the Chinese state. B, the logic of production in China, although it assails, although it subordinates certain aspects we associate with capitalism, it assimilates them in a higher logic of production, which is absolutely measured on the basis of a much more concrete and determinate principle of common prosperity, of general happiness of the Chinese people, of metrics of growth that are quantifiable on a human basis, of development, of electricity, of technology, and so on and so on, according to the precepts of China's 5-year plans, which seem very simplistic on on a surface level, but you get in the nitty-gritty of how the planning process occurs in the details, and it's very meticulous. So no, China is a socialist country, okay? It's not even just because the state dominates the economy. State-owned enterprises and the public sector dominates. The point is, what goal or what principle is in command of the economy? Is it profit? Is it naked profit? Or is it a more concrete type of goal? Instead of naked profit and just money for money's sake, what actually drives and commands the Chinese economy? Well, it's a logic of production based on the achievement of socially oriented goals. So it's a socialist country, period. Well, Norway and that's not true. Norway and Scandinavia have welfare as an addendum to the logic of capitalist production, meaning the ultimate goal is still their subordination in place within global financial capitalism, but they will take a portion of revenues and profits and use them for social purposes. But the end goal itself is not for a social purpose. So they're not socialist countries. And then my favorite one is the retards who go, actually, China is fascist. For every retard who claims China is fascist, and I'm talking about the right-wing fascist LARPers who claim this, your ideology is so disgusting and failed and bankrupt and buried under the fucking sands and dirt of history. It's a completely bankrupt, failed, disgusting cuck ideology, which was absolutely fucking bulldozed and dominated by the forces of world history. The fucking skulls of Nazism and Italian fascism are literally crushed under the fucking boot of more victorious and advanced historical forces. The flags of the fascists are beaten, tattered, and ripped apart, and they're used to wipe the asses of the world today. But you dare look at a communist state like China and go, with your smug soyjack face, this is proof of fascism. Why can't your fucking fascist states with your fascist flags be successful? Why do you have to go to a communist state with a ruling communist party and use it to take credit for your failed ideology of being successful? Because you're a cuck and you're a loser and you're a nothing. Shut the fuck up and sit down, you pissant. But that aside, it's also untrue by every conceivable standard of what we actually see what fascism was in history. At no point did fascism ever institute a principle of the public sector prevailing within the economy. Let's start from there. Fascists barely, if ever, nationalized anything within the economy. What fascists did is they took the monopoly interests of existing capitalist cartels and they used public revenues and the public sector to defend the monopolies. And that's all it was. Profits were still in command. The interests of the capitalist class, the private interests of the capitalist class, were still in command. They were just in command in a way that was monopolistic, meaning instead of one sector of the capitalist class prevailing, the entire capitalist class had its interests defended as a monopoly capitalist class. And this was so drastic that institutions were created in Italy, like the IRI, which took public taxes and public revenues, financed through taxes and use them to bail out private companies that failed on the market so that capitalists can remain solvent. Literally, the entire state was kneeling and subordinated to the principle of doing whatever the fuck the capitalist class wanted. Fascism was literally the enslavement of the state to the capitalist class, whereas communism is the opposite in China. If there is a capitalist class in China, which there isn't, by the way, it is under the boot of the Communist Party. And let's look at the makeup and the decision-making power structures within the Communist Party. You have a party that's overwhelmingly made up of workers, of peasants, of ordinary common people. They say, well, there's business people in the Communist Party. Yeah, and they're a minority within the party. Their influence doesn't predominate and is not allowed to predominate. China has nothing to do with fascism. There's not a single fascist state in history where 70% of the economy and its revenues is controlled by the state and is owned publicly. And you know what? That's undercutting it. That's undercutting it. I'll tell you exactly why it's undercutting it. As RTSG pointed out in their studies, the way we even classify state-owned enterprises in the West underestimates the extent of how much the GDP and the total economy is generated by state-owned enterprises. And I'm not even including cooperatives here. I'm not even including collectively owned property that is outside the hands of the state in this metric. The pattern of ownership and the control of means of production that exists with China is overwhelmingly socialistic. And I would say 100% socialistic. Because to whatever extent you could say there's a private sector within mainland China, you're just talking about different degrees of the devolvement of management in practice. There's not a single economic enterprise within China that is fully autonomous, that is able to somehow not have its existence ultimately subordinated to the 5-year plans of the socialist government. You know, fascists, they cope. They're like, well, Nazi Germany, the state put some people in jail. It's like, what does that fucking mean? Again, look at the proportion of the economy within Nazi Germany that was owned in a socialistic capacity, you know, that was owned and entrusted in the interests of the common good. Nothing. And maybe they nationalized the airplane company or something. That was it. One thing. Absolutely incomparable. And then you ask these retards, why is it that, well, they're like, well, China abandoned communism because the Mao era, they abandoned the system that existed in the Mao era. So who said there's only one stage of socialism? Can you show me where Marx says that? I could show you where he says the opposite. There's different stages of socialism. And let me just fucking simplify it because it's so simple. Mao era socialism was primarily about overcoming feudalism. It wasn't even about overcoming capitalism because capitalism barely, if at all, existed within China. So Mao era socialism was mainly about overcoming feudalism. That's why it was quote unquote as crude as it was. That's why it had such a leveling. You know, that's the legacy of, if anything, Mao era socialism can be argued to be more capitalist than the post-Dengist kind. Because Mao era socialism was a leveling process to destroy feudalism, which was something that had previously been the function of bourgeois capitalism. So after that was accomplished, China entered a higher stage of socialism. And like, why are there so many aspects of China that appear capitalistic? And it's like, yeah, the key word A is appear. And the reason is because socialism is a higher stage than capitalism. That means socialism takes capitalism and subordinates it to a higher logic of production. Socialism doesn't outright completely wipe out capitalism and build something new from scratch. That's utopianism. That has nothing to do with the Marxist notion of socialism. Socialism takes capitalism and subordinates it to a higher logic of production. That's how socialism emerges from capitalism. And that's what China has been doing. The idea that China just keeps the label, but it's communist in name only. The amount of retards who say this because they think McDonald's equals capitalism, which is, and if you read Kojev, you know the opposite is true. Fordism, Walt Disney, McDonald's, Apple, these don't represent capitalism. Maybe culturally they do, but as a logic of production, you think fucking Walmart is organized on capitalistic lines? If you think that, you're a fucking idiot. Walmart is closer to socialism than many historical socialist countries, to be honest. These represent how within capitalism, socialism is already overtaking it as a logic of production. We already have the basic requisites of socialism, even in America. The difference is our state and our superstructure is controlled by a bunch of fucking old Wall Street pedophiles who rape the country and children, and that's why we have this sick, disgusting system we have in America. History itself has led us like a ship sailing towards socialism. We already are past the point where socialism socialism can prevail in America, the only thing stopping us is a handful of pedophiles in England and Wall Street, and the British Queen and King. Now the king, the pedophilic British royal family who goes to Epstein Island. These are the disgusting evil vampires that are stopping Americans from having what China has. And you just look at the British king as he smiles. He gives his smirk. He's a disgusting pedophile on Epstein's Island. And you look at these Wall Street pedophiles smiling and smirking. And all their disgusting bourgeois prostitutes on the Wall Street Journal and all these disgusting magazines and these journalists and these media figures and this Hollywood and all this nonsense, and all these NGOs and all these think tanks, all these prostitutes of the bourgeoisie, they sit here and they talk about China. They need to shut their mouth. They are dogs and they are nothing. Dogs should not speak to wolves. Proletarian warriors are wolves. People who have correct proletarian consciousness are wolves. The running dogs of the bourgeoisie need to shut their barking bitch mouths when speaking on the name of China or any other socialist country in history. Shut your fucking mouth. You're nothing. You're worthless. And what can I say? Yeah, look at these idiots who are there. It's the most stupid thing you'll see on the internet. Oh, you're a socialist with an iPhone? Yeah, socialism created the iPhone, you fuckwit. You think capitalism created the fucking iPhone? You think the fucking spontaneous fucking chaos and anarchy of the fucking market fucking put together the fucking supply chains and R&D that created the fucking iPhone? You fucking idiot! There should be an educational institution of higher learning mandated by the law that takes your fucking head and bangs it on the fucking desk until you knock out and pass out every fucking day until you wake up with fucking over 100 IQ so you can open your fucking mouth. You think anything we see in our modern fucking advanced economy was created by capitalism, you fucking idiot? We're $40 trillion in fucking debt. That's negative 40 trillion in profit. How are profits in command? If everyone's in debt, you fucking idiot. Nobody's even making money. It's all pretend. It's all imaginary. It's printed by the fucking Federal Reserve on credit. You know what that actually means? It means the private sector literally plans the entire fucking economy however they want, regardless of actual Adam Smith, authentic fucking price signals and market signals that come from supply and demand. All of that has taken a backseat to socialist planning in 2025. Every fucking thing on your table was created by socialism. Your iPhone, your McDonald's, your Gucci belt, everything is socialism. It's just the socialism of the bourgeoisie, where they rape the world and everyone has to suffer. It's the bourgeois socialism, where the bourgeoisie literally rapes children 24/7 every day and rapes the world, and nobody can do anything about it because they lie to you and say that's just fair competition. Complete fraudulent retards who don't know what they're talking about. Oh, you enjoy that. Everything in our economy is created by socialism. That is good and advanced. Socialism created computers. It created fucking everything. You know what capitalism created? Child labor. That's what capitalism created. Capitalism created child labor and Epstein Island rape factories. That's what capitalism creates in 2025. You know what capitalism creates in 2025? Epstein Island, anime pornography, OnlyFans, and other forms of disgusting filth. Wasteful nonsense filth. That's what capitalism in 2025 creates. Diddy. If you're one of those people that go, oh, I'm a capitalist because I invested shit coins and I made some money on my shit coins, you are Diddy. Shut the fuck up, Diddy. Go back in jail where you belong. You're a menace and a blight on society. You are not a capitalist, you're a Diddyist. Your disgusting, mentally rotted brain compels you to consume disgusting, filthy anime porn, and while you think that McDonald's and iPhones are capitalism, you idiot. You are nothing but Diddy and you are Epstein. Shut the fuck up. You go, China is your capitalist. Your capitalism created China. Then why is every capitalist country a degenerating shithole? Then they're like, well, in China, they have ethnic uniformity and they have ethnic homogeneity. It's like, yeah, there's over like 56 recognized ethnicities and languages in China. But let me even entertain this idea that ethnic and racial uniformity is the reason China's successful. What ethnicity are you talking about? Do you even know what an ethnicity is? Do you even know how fucking sophisticated and complicated the Chinese language is? Do you even know what it means to be a Han Chinese? Do you even know what is predicated as a prerequisite? You think the Han Chinese ethnic status is predicated on some fucking ancient gay reek pederast identity from Plato, you fucking idiot? The Chinese take your idealist notion of identity and they literally pulverize it and smash it into a million pieces, because the Chinese notion of civilization and ethnos is based on the acceptance and recognition of contradictions. It's Taoism, you fucking retard. Unless you've mastered the Chinese language and classical Chinese poetry, don't even open your fucking mouth about ethnicity in China. To be Han in China, what does that culture mean? What does that ethnicity actually fucking entail? It has nothing to do with Western notions of identity. The notion of racial identity is irrelevant to the Chinese determinate existence that they call the Han culture. The Han culture doesn't care about racial purity or identity. It cares about acculturation, what they call civilization, familiarity with the language, familiarity with the classics, familiarity with the culture. It's so much more sophisticated and complicated for your puny, retarded, Redditified, pornographied brain to understand. So shut the fuck up when you say that racial homogeneity is why China is successful, when you don't even understand the Chinese race, quote unquote, in the first place. You think the Chinese race is some kind of identity, and it's not. Yeah, everyone looks the same, so that's a... Yeah, you're literally a retard. Everyone looks the same, that's why it's uniform. Yeah, that's why, during China's warlord era, there was just a bunch of black people running around. There was just a bunch of Indians and Mexicans running around in China. That's why they had instability for hundreds of years. Shut the fuck up, you fucking moron. You actual dipshit. Yeah, there are a bunch of Somalis running around during China's warlord era. That's why there was no uniformity. But when they became racially pure, that's why they became uniform, right? There's a bunch of Mexicans running around. There's a bunch of people from El Salvador. There's a bunch of people from, there was a bunch of Arabs running around in China. Stupid ass people saying stupid ass shit because they're coping retards who have a failed right-wing fascist ideology that's based on nothing but failure, defeat, and being dominated and conquered. And they look at the communists and they say, that's our success. This proves my ideology. And you gotta look at these people and say, are you even human, you coping retard? Where's your flag? Where's your symbols? Where's your anything? It's all buried and blown up. Your ideology is on some fucking image board where they're doing little dark age edits and Sun and Rands on school shooter, mass shooter, FBI groomed, pedophile international networks. That's where your ideology is. My ideology is hanging high in the sky on a giant red flag in China over the most prosperous and advanced civilization in the world. That's the difference between our ideologies, quote unquote. Yours is for anime pederasts. Mine is evident, self-evidently superior and successful. Shut your mouth with this nonsense LARP. China's actually fascist. Then why couldn't the actual self-proclaimed fascist countries be like China and not fucking totally kill themselves and cry and bitch and moan and then shoot themselves in the head? Like Mussolini, who failed. He couldn't even defeat Ethiopia. Why? Your leader is upside down right now and your other leader shot himself in the head. My leader is on top of the Himalayan mountains. Shut the fuck up and stop talking. Oh, but China abandoned the communism. No, they moved on to a higher stage of socialism.
I'll debate you for the sake of argument because no one's coming up. So I didn't hear the first part of your lecture, so maybe you addressed it. But what if I said China does not practice communism and communism is not China's operating system? How do you respond?
Well, you seem more educated, so I would guess you're trying to talk about the higher phase of communism, right?
I'm going to leave it on you. How would you respond to that?
I would say that communism, according to Marx, is a principle and it's a process. It's not necessarily a specific type of system or a mode of production. And I would say what's driving China's development today is communism. Even if there's aspects that seem to resemble capitalism, those aspects are being assimilated into a higher logic of production that operates on the basis of fulfilling tangible, social, and common goals.
I would say the application is correct. But in China, and I struggled with this for years, I would always say communism. And I love to use that word because I know it triggers people. But I found that the use of the word communism is not very prevalent in China because they have a different word for their system. And they specifically choose a different word based on their understanding of Marx.
Of Marxism.
Do you know what the word?
Yeah, yes. I don't know what it is in Chinese, but I know they describe it as socialism with Chinese characteristics.
There it is. Absolutely. The operating system is socialism with Chinese characteristics.
Here's a reason for that. So in Marxism-Leninism, they divide history into stages in a very textbook manner. Feudalism, capitalism, and then there's socialism, and there's even different stages of socialism. So there's the primary stage of socialism, there's an advanced stage of socialism, intermediary stage, whatever. And the Chinese regard themselves and consider themselves in the primary stage of socialism right now. And they don't believe they've achieved communism per se, you know, in terms of a stage of the mode of production. They still think that's in the future. Now, where I would differ in my use of the term, not necessarily saying that they're wrong, but we're just talking about different things. So a mode of production, how do you qualify a mode of production? You can technically have a communist state ruling over a society stuck in the capitalist mode of production. There are examples of that in history. The 1920s in the Soviet Union, I'm not even talking about the NEP. You can't just create socialism overnight. That's not how it works. Modes of production develop and change according to objective historical laws. So for sure, the mode of production is an objective reality. I would say it's fair to say China is in a socialist mode of production. According to that logic, I would agree. Where I would qualify my statement that it's communist is that I consider communism to be a more integral system that is based on how the political superstructure responds to the development of history and the productive forces. If you have a system in place where the proletarian dictatorship or the state or a ruling communist party is governing according to communist principles, meaning scientifically responding to the mode of production and giving way to its development to communism, I would say that's a communist system. I would say a communist system is one that's guided by communist principles, because I'm including, in addition to the mode of production, the rule of the Communist Party and how it's governing that mode of production. Whereas the Chinese are not doing that. They're saying, we have a socialist mode of production. And they say the Communist Party is guiding that socialist mode of production, but they're not necessarily including the Communist Party's governance itself in that characterization. They're really just talking of something more of an objective description of what mode of production they exist in. So that would be my technical qualification.
I think that, there's nothing you said that was incorrect. I think that the biggest challenge and what's been difficult for me after all these years trying to understand the system and the thought, I never knew what Chinese characteristics meant. And I only recently figured out, in the simplest way, what does Chinese characteristics mean? And basically, it's concrete Marxism. They call it GT, Marxist Juyi. So based on the reality of the experience, there's no abstract Marxism. They develop their own system of socialism that comes from their reality. So, for example, using the countryside to surround the cities. Nongchuan, Bawei, Chengshi, and all the way up to the reform and opening up. So it's a very dynamic form of socialism. It isn't dogmatic. It's rooted in the people and their actual experiences.
It's actually it's the consistently applied. It's more faithful to Marxism than the Soviet kind because it's operating on the dialectical basis. Marxism is about the concrete, rising from the abstract to the concrete. So the Chinese have taken that to another level, whereas the Soviet kind was more dogmatic. It was more abstract. And they, by making it more concrete for China's reality, are actually more faithful to Marxism than other kinds of communists from history.
I just want to thank you for bringing me up, Haas. And no one's going to debate you, bro. No one's fucking with you. Like, God bless you. God bless America. God bless you, the ACP. And catch you next time, bro. See you in Shanghai, man. I hope you make it to Shanghai.
For sure. When I get to Shanghai, I'll hit you up, bro. God bless.